store. I'm the executive director of the Leather Archives and Museum. The Leather Archives and Museum was established to preserve and to collect and to provide access to history and culture about leather, fetish, kink, alternative sexuality, primarily because these things were not being collected or saved elsewhere. I think it's important to learn about sex history in general, and including S&M and fetish and kink, because oftentimes when people are exploring this type of sex, they might feel like they're the only person who has these types of desires. They might think, oh my gosh, my sex drive, I'm really into some really strange things. And feeling isolated and feeling like you're alone is not such a great thing. And so if you even just start to dig into the history of how many people have been into these types of fetishes, or how long people have been exploring these types of things, you're going to feel a little bit connected to not only other people who maybe share the same desires as you do, but you're going to learn, hey, people have been into this for a very, very long time. And I think that helps feel proud about what you're into, and it just kind of helps explore sexually the things that you might be into. Kinky sex and fetish sex really has no preference for gender or sexual orientation or color or socioeconomic status. And so while there are some very visible things like International Mr. Leather, there's very visible things online like FetLife, which is kind of an online social media community. Really all different types of people explore this kind of sex, and that's documented here at the Leather Archives and Museum, that whether you're in a big city or you're in a small city, or you've got somebody that's super hardcore into it and they live in leather and fetish gear 24 hours a day, or it's somebody that, hey, I just kind of like to tie up my wife and pull out my silk neckties and tie her wrists to the bed. You're going to find a really broad range of spectrum of people who are engaged in this type of activity. I think the internet is really the best place to start. It's going to open your eyes to different fetishes. You're going to be able to connect electronically with people who are into the same things as you are. And so sites like FetLife or Recon, alt.com, Collar Me, those are really great sites to kind of start out and just begin to explore, get your feelers for what's out there. As you explore those sites more and more, you're going to come across events in your area where people actually show up at the same place and they do classes and there's social opportunities, and that's kind of a good next step in that, lots of people are in the same place at the same time, and it's kind of a good second step to get your feet wet. I think one of the biggest misconceptions about leather / kink / fetish people really has to do with consent, and that what we engage in is consensual activities between adults. And so if we're talking about abuse or somebody getting beat or tied up against their will, that's something altogether different and illegal and shouldn't be happening. And so I think consent is really, that there's a group of people that consent is first and foremost the most important thing, and we're not doing anything unless there's the consent of everybody involved. I think that starting with organizations, there's a couple really big kind of national organizations that no matter where you're at, it's good to pay attention to what they're doing. I'll kind of plug ourselves first. Of course, the Leather Archives and Museum, not only thinking and talking about history, but also culture and what's happening today. The National Coalition for Sexual Freedom is another great organization to follow, as well as the Woodhull Freedom Foundation. And so those are a little bit more activist advocacy organizations, but at the same time, they're very connected to the people and things that are going on. The Leather Archives and Museum, of course, we're here in Chicago, and we've got amazing resources here. But because our stuff is from all over the country, like from day one, our motto and our tagline was located in Chicago and serving the world. And so we do that, some with mobile exhibits that travel around, but also we put a lot of emphasis on digitization. And so I would definitely send people to our website, leatherarchives.org, as well as we have a really strong presence on social media. We put as much as we can from the museum out onto social media, just to give people little tastes of what their history is or where they come from. And as far as people getting involved, or I guess I would say exploring their sexual desires, really look into like some of the online sites that I mentioned, and just have fun with it. I think sex is about having a good time, and it's about pleasure, and it's about enjoying yourself. And so the sites that I mentioned are great ways to kind of delve into that. And then hopefully people follow up and attend some of the events. They're a good time and they're a lot of fun, which is really what